Hey guys, welcome to part 5 of the mean stack front to back series. In the last video we finished up our backend API, so we basically have a register route that we can post to, and we can register a user with MongoDB. We also have an authenticate route where they can log in and they can get back a JSON web token, and then we added a profile route which we protected, and the user has to send along that token to validate or to authorize. Now I put all that code into a Git repository called node auth app. Basically it's just the API part, so if you guys are interested and you want to get the code from GitHub, you can do that. Usage is just npm install to install the dependencies, and you can start up the application. And then I also put the 3 endpoints that we created. Okay, so just to let you know that. And I did put an index.html in the public folder that just says front end index.html. So what we're going to do now is we're going to set up our Angular front end. Now a lot of you guys requested that I make the font bigger, so I'm just going to upscale this a little bit. And then we want to go to our terminal, which I can also make a little bigger. Okay, and then we need to install the Angular-CLI. So if you don't have that installed already, then you just want to do npm install-g angular-CLI. Okay, now once that's done, we can actually generate our Angular 2 front-end application, and we want to do that right in the mean auth app folder. So we're going to say ng new, and then we want the name. So I'm going to call this Angular-source because that's what it is. It's the source for the front-end Angular app. You can call it whatever you'd like, but I'm just going to call it that. So let's go ahead and run that. And then notice over here it created that folder for us that has the entire Angular 2 structure. Now one of the first things I want to do is go to the Angular-CLI JSON file, and we want to change the output directory. So when we do ng build and it compiles everything for us and gets it ready for our application, I don't want it to go to the dist folder. What I want it to do is go out one into our public folder in our Express app. So we're going to change this out dir from dist to /public. Okay, that way it goes right into that, and then we can just save that and close it. Now we should be able to actually run this now. So if we go down, I'm going to make sure the backend server is running. So we'll do nodemon up here. And then down here, let's go ahead and run. We need to go into mean auth app, and then we're going to cd into Angular-source. All right, and then from here we should be able to do ng serve, and that should service the front end on port 4200. All right, so compiled successfully. So let's go over here and then go to localhost 4200, and we get AppWorks. Okay, we'll open up the Chrome console here as well, and we're good. Okay, so right now we have our server on port 3000, we have the front end on port 4200. Now if you don't know anything about Angular 2, I would suggest that you go and watch my Angular 2 in 60 minutes video, where I explain all the basics of components and services and in the router and all that stuff. Alright, but basically we want to be in the source folder here and then in the app folder, and that's pretty much where we're going to be working. So there's an app.module.ts file. This is basically the meeting place for all components. Whenever we create a component or a service, we need to import it into here, just like you see the main app component. And then we just need to add that to declarations. You can see we have our app component. And then when we create a service, we need to import it and put it in the providers. And then a module, for instance, HTTP module, forms module, those also need to be imported and put in the imports. Okay, so it's kind of a main meeting place for all of the different components. So it gives us by default the main app component, which is this file right here, app component.ts. And basically we're bringing in the main Angular package. We have a decorator for the component, which it allows us to add metadata, including the selector. So the selector is basically the HTML tag we can use to insert the component. Then we have the template URL, which is the HTML file that's associated with the component. And you can see that that's right here. It's just putting out the title. And then we have a style sheet URL that we can use as well for each component. And then we have our main class for that component. In this case, we're setting a property called title to AppWorks. And then if you look in the HTML, that's what's being output, and that's why we see AppWorks right here. Okay. Now, when we think about our application, we need to figure out what components we're going to use, and we're going to pretty much break up every single part of it into a component. So for instance, we have the navbar. That's going to be its own component. We have the login page, the register, the profile, the dashboard, the home page. All these things are going to be in their own component. Okay, so we can break it up nicely. Now, to create a component, we're going to create a folder inside the app folder called components. Okay, and then instead of manually creating them, we can actually generate them with the Angular-CLI. So down here, I'm going to just stop it from running, and you want to go into the components folder before you attempt to generate them. Okay, so we're going to say cd source /app /components. Okay, make sure you're in that folder. Let me clear this out. Okay, and then from there, we're going to say ng space g, so generate component, and let's generate the navbar. So we'll just say navbar. All right, so if we run that, now you'll see that inside of the components folder, we have a navbar folder. And inside there, we have our component TS, and we also have the component HTML. It also gives us a CSS, but we're not going to worry about that. And then a spec file for testing. We're not going to worry about that. Okay, so this is the main component that it creates us. And you can see by default, it gives us a selector called app navbar. Okay, so every time we generate a component, the selector will be prefixed with app dash. Now, what's also nice about Angular-CLI and generating a component is if we look in the app module file, you'll see that it's already being imported. Okay, so it's importing the navbar, and it also puts it down here in the declarations. If we weren't using Angular-CLI, then you'd have to just do that yourself. Okay, as well as create all these files that it just created. But you can see what I mean by it generates it, but it doesn't do it so that you don't know what's going on. You can certainly just look at these and see exactly what it did. Okay, if for some reason you're not using the Angular-CLI, then just go ahead and create these files. Now, if we want to display this within the application, we can go ahead and go to our main app component. Not the main app component, but the HTML for it. And if we go right under the H1, actually let's get rid of this, we don't need that. We're going to just put in app navbar. Okay, and then we'll save that, and let's make sure it's running. So we got to do ng serve. Okay, and then let's reload that. And now we're getting that the navbar works, okay, because that's what's in the navbar HTML. So it's as easy as that to generate a component and then include it in your application, in your main component. And let's also clear this console out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is generate the rest of the components that we're going to need, just so we have them ready. Okay, so let's go back to our command line here, and we'll go ahead and stop this. All right, and let's clear it out. And then we're going to do ng, make sure you're in your components folder, ngg component, and let's create login. Okay, so you can see it created a login folder. Let's run it again, and let's do register. Okay, again, and we're going to do, let's see, home and dashboard. spell that right? Yeah. And let's see, last but not least, profile. Okay, so those are going to be our components. So we should be able to now run it with ng-serve. And then I'm going to just close those up for now. And what we want to do now is create our router. Okay, so first step is to look in the index.html, and we want to go right under the body tag here, and we just want to say base href equals / saying that we want that to be our base route. Okay, let's also change the title here. We'll just change this to mean auth app. Okay, and we might as well include Bootstrap while we're here. I'm using Bootswatch. Okay, which gives us a customized version of Bootstrap. And let me see if I remember what I used here. Let's see, what was it? I think it was Sandstone. So if we click download, I'm just going to grab this link right here and copy it. Okay, and then we'll go into our index.html and oh, never mind, they already put the bait. I didn't realize that they put that there. So we should be good. We don't need that. And let's put link rel style sheet and href, and then we're just going to paste that link in. Okay, so we'll save that. Good. And that should now be in effect. All right, so like I said, we want to do our router, so we're going to go to app.module.ts, and we want to bring in the router module. So let's say import router module as well as routes, and that's going to be from Angular/router. Okay, and then down here we have to include that in the declarations. So I'm going to put this, I'm sorry, not the declarations, the imports. So we'll go right under the HTTP module, and let's do router module, and then we're going to do .for route and pass in app routes. Okay, now this app routes needs to be an object with our actual routes. So we're going to go right up here and say const app routes, and we're going to set it to the type of routes, and then it's going to equal an array with our different routes. Whoa, what happened there? Oh no, does this freeze on me? I think it did. Alright, I'm going to have to close this and go back in. Alright. Okay, so app routes equals an array, and then let's go in here and put in our first route. So we want to specify a path, and that's going to be just nothing because this is the home. And then we want to set component, and we want to set that to the home component, okay, which is being brought in right here. So that's going to be our home page. And then let's put a comma right here, and we'll copy this, and then let's do our register. So this will be register, and we'll set that to register component, and then login component. All right, let's see, we might as well do the rest while we're here. So we'll also do dashboard, and these are going to be protected later on, but for now we'll just put them in. And then we get profile, and that should be good. So let's go ahead and save that. And just by doing what we just did, we should now have working routes. So if we go to, actually it's going to give us an error because there's no router outlet. So we need to add that to our main app component. Okay, so we want the navbar on every page, so we're going to leave that there. And then let's just create a container class so that everything is wrapped inside of that. And then we just want to put router outlet. Okay, so we'll save that. And now you'll see we get homework. So let me just clear this out, make sure there's no errors. Okay, so we get homework, so we're on the home page. If we go to /login, we get login works, register, and so on. Okay, so now that we have our routes, let's go ahead and create the navbar. To get the navbar, I'm just going to go to Get Bootstrap, and then go to Getting Started, and then Examples, and then just click on the starter template. And then if we do a Control U, we can see the source code, and I'm just going to grab this right here, this nav. And then we'll put that in our navbar HTML file. Okay, excuse me. Let's change the project name to mean auth app. And then up here, I'm going to get rid of the navbar fixed top, and I'm going to change navbar inverse to navbar default. All right, and then let's see, for the links, we're going to have two ULs. This one here is going to have a class of navbar left, and then underneath it we'll put another one with navbar right. Okay, so let's start on the left. We're going to have, actually the left is only going to have the home, so we can get rid of these two. Now when we're using the router, we don't want to use an href right here. We actually want to use brackets and then router link. Okay, and then we'll set that equal to set of brackets, single quotes, and then the route, which we want to be /. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of the class active. In a second I'll show you how we can actually make that work though. But right now let's just copy this, and let's go down here, and we'll paste that in twice. And over here we're going to have login and register right now. So let's say login, and this will go to /login, and then register. That'll go to /register. Alright, so let's go ahead and save that and test it out. Okay, so we go home, login, register. Okay, so our router, our navbar is now working. Now I want the active class to work. For instance, when we're on login, I want this to be shaded in, okay, no matter what page we're on. So we need to, let's start with the home right here, and we're going to add some brackets, and we're going to say router link active. Whoops, I want square brackets. So router link active, and we want to set that to that and then active. Okay, we're going to put that in all of them. Okay, let's save that. Let's see, that doesn't seem to be working. Oh, this needs to go on the LI, not the actual link. So let's go ahead and move it. Oops. Okay, so we'll get rid of this. Alright, let's try that. Alright, so you can see register is highlighted, login, home, but home is it's still highlighted. So What we need to do is just add one more thing to each of these. We need to set an option. So we're going to do our brackets, and we're going to say router link active options, and then we want to set that equal to an object where we say exact true. Okay, I believe that should work. So let's go ahead and copy that, and we're going to put that in both of these as well. And now you'll see that it works perfectly. Alright, so I think that's a good place to stop. We've set up our Angular front end, and we set up our components and routing. So in the next video, we're going to start to add our content to each page, and then we'll move on to adding the registration functionality. Alright, so hopefully you guys are enjoying this series. If you are and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. If you are subscribed, please let me know in the comments if you like it or not. And that's it. Thanks for watching.